unfortunate that my second physical screen's not working, but I appreciate all of your patience. So today, I'm giving a presentation. I've titled it How to Build a Fourth Place, Combating Burnout from Within. And it was based on essentially like just my enthusiasm after I read this particular book. The title of it is Burnout: The Secret of Unlocking the Stress Cycle, and it's written by Emily Nagoski, PhD, and her identical twin sister, Amelie Nagoski. And the two of them together, Emily Nagoski, I heard about her kind of randomly. She is I think they call it anthropologist, and she works on in like the theory of sexuality. And her sister was like a high level vocalist in choir. And after I read the book, they're identical twins. And the kind of conundrum that Emily was observing was that they were both really high performing, but one was chronically in a stress and she had all kinds of physiological symptoms and chronically in burnout. And Emily wasn't experiencing the same thing. And they like, if we're genetically the same, how and why is this reoccurring for you and not for me? And it was like her third hospitalization, and her sister, who's a vocalist, lost her voice. That she said, we're going to get to the bottom of this. So they co-authored this book together about how to address the stress cycle. They talk about it in a pretty, I liked it. It was pretty comprehensive, holistic way. And I think in perspective wise, they also talk about it from kind of a woman-centered perspective. And they're fairly open in how they describe women, but they describe about like the cultural and social implications of stress, burnout, and the different factors that contribute to continuing and perpetuating that cycle. So for me, it was a really good read. And then I had so many ideas that I ended up making a PowerPoint presentation, as one does. And then I just sat on it for 2 years. I saw this opportunity, so I decided to join. So I just want to share this something that I made out of a fever dream one day. So thank you for your opportunity in listening. So first, I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. I'm beaming into you from Mohkinstsis, otherwise known as Calgary. And this is Treaty 7 territory, as well as District 6 for the Alberta Métis Nation. And I'm a resettler. I consider myself a resettler. I recognize and commit to the shared responsibility. So if we can go forward through the slide. So I recognize and commit to the shared responsibilities needed to help bring everyone together on this journey of truth and reconciliation. Today, I aim to celebrate the Chinook winds that blow all through this land, now known as Calgary in southern Alberta. The winds have shaped the land, the lives, and the cultures of this place since time immemorial, and will continue to do so. In this moment, I call attention to every breath, which is your internal winds. They sustain me and how they mirror the fierce Chinook winds that sustain so much around me. I am as grateful for this breath as I am the next one, as well as the warm Chinook winds. Next slide. So on top of reading this book, something that kind of sparked an interest for me was the idea of a third place. So someone can just raise their hand or just speak out and let me know if they've heard about third places. The idea of third place, when I looked it up on Wikipedia, please, Courtney, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just putting up my hand that I'd heard of third place. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those things that became popular a few years ago, and I was intrigued because um, it sounded really plausible. And so when I looked it up on Wikipedia, I found this information. So it's attributed to someone named Ray Oldenburg, and it's the idea that after the Industrial Revolution, there were first places, which is your home, and second places, which are external workplaces. And then there were third places. And those include churches, community centers, libraries, public spaces where you could perform as yourself and be observed and interact with other people in an authentic way without repercussions of work or home, and you had different ways to express your identity. And third places being a place where there was a certain element of freedom. Now, theoretically, some people say that third places were purposely destroyed because how it they also became thriving grounds for revolutionary acts and ideas and different people coming together in community, and how different states did not like that. So they were systematically destroyed and underfunded and et cetera, et cetera. So that gave me to believe that if there's not a lot of places where you can freely be yourself in public and interact with other people in public, how then do we avoid, you know, interference, whether it's through state or what intervention, or whether it's just through other means of scarcity? We don't have the time with work and all that. So the idea came to me about cultivating that fourth space within, that it's going to be a little bit harder to be taken away from you. Next slide. So for the agenda of this particular talk, we're going to do some introductions amongst each other with amongst ourselves, and define some of our goals, develop the understanding, and create some strategies to building that layered sense of fourth place within ourselves. So the next slide shows that in a moment, we're going to go over a little game. Instead of two truths and a lie, it's going to be two truths and a wish. So on a little piece of paper, perhaps you can write it. Maybe you can hold those three things in your mind. I'm not great with that, so I like to record it. But I want you to find two things that are true about you and one thing that is maybe perhaps soon to be true. It's a wish, it's a desire, it's something that rings true to you, but authentic to your future self rather than a lie. We're not going to invite that kind of negativity into our lives. Next slide. And so these are some things that I started pondering that are air quotes, like true about me. I am a cis woman with Jamaican Canadian heritage. I was raised in Ontario, and that came with a certain amount of values that I was exposed to and internalized to a great deal. I have a family that kind of birthed me and kind of contributed to my current personality. I've participated in different activities. I've accumulated different types of, how would I say, like certain things that people say, like I'm a registered yoga teacher with 500 hours. I've taken certification in yin and trauma informed yoga. I also have an ADHD diagnosis. There's different things that I've done to label and categorize myself in ways that people understand and relate to me. Next slide. But then there's other things about me that are simultaneously also true, that perhaps in a third space would be appreciated a little bit different, about how it is that I show up, what is real for me, what is authentic for me, and perhaps some things that I more willingly share, and some of the things that I'm more protective of and more vulnerable about and more selective about how I let people know that about me. But they're true enough that I believe them to be true, and they still have an impact and influence on how it is that I move through my day. So these are all different things that I think are important when we think about how it is that we move through the world, whether it's that first, second, third, or even that fourth space. What parts of our identity are we letting show up and letting take the lead? And so now we come back to our group, in the next slide, to do our sharing about our two truths and a wish. So I'll go first. I'm not sure how large the group is, so we'll have a raise hands of people who want to kind of contribute and do an introduction for themselves. So for me, I teach yoga, and what's been important to me and inextricably linked with my yoga journey is my desire to share yoga in a way that is decolonized and authentic to the roots of yoga, and share it with people who exist in Calgary in a racialized body. that's important to me because it's so synonymous with how it is that I came to my understanding about yoga and connecting spirituality with the physical. And so right now I'm a teacher and I teach once a month to Black Pride YYC. It's an open group, so anybody who wants to participate can reach out to them. And we do it at community wise once a month. I have Indigenous status to the Indigenous peoples of Jamaica, and my peonies are in full bloom. Now, would anybody like to raise their hand, take a guess which ones are the truths, which ones are the wish, and then share theirs? I can't see any hands. So allow one more moment, and then we are free to move on.
Angel speaking, Trisha. I'm sorry, I remember 2 out of your 3.
That's okay. Yes. So I teach once a month for Black Pride YYC at Community Wise. I teach them yoga. I have Indigenous status amongst the Indigenous people of Jamaica, the Maroons. And I have a garden full of peonies that are in full bloom right now. I think I see a hand from Amy.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess that the peonies in full bloom is the wish.
I was a little bit stretching there, but like this morning, my peonies all bloomed. I have white ones, I have pink ones, and I have a little, like a deeper fuchsia one. And they are all big, full headed, and really open to the world today. And I was so excited.
Beautiful.
Amy, do you happen to have two truths and a wish that you'd like to share with us?
Oh, sure. So I'm a prairie farm kid at heart, and I love and nourish my connection to nature. Um, I am a recovering perfectionist that continues to navigate ADHD and anxiety. And I also have, well, not peonies, but I have a flourishing foodscape in my backyard. It's becoming its own little ecosystem.
Oh, I wonder if there's somebody else who'd like to go next who wants to get Amy's. Well, then, Amy, I think I'm gonna have to go for you. And I think like the backyard, um, like self-sustaining garden, I think that might be the wish.
You are correct. It's
Yeah,
a work in progress, but she ain't there yet.
yeah, yeah. I can see that. And for me, I wasn't clear. For me, my wish is to get my Indigenous status. So I've taken the first steps. I got my citizenship, and now the next thing that I have to do on both of my maternal, my paternal lines, both of my parents, their mothers were both from the Indigenous peoples of Jamaica. So all I have to do is just let them know, and then I can get Indigenous status in the country. And I'm very excited to do that, but I'm still, dragging my feet as usual. So thanks all for playing along. That was our introduction, and now we can move on. So the next slide, we're going to go over some of the ways that we can understand the stress cycle and hopefully identify our personal stress cycle, because that's what's going to be more important. And then build a personal map to your fourth place. So in understanding the burnout cycle, physiologically understand the sense of burnout and how to resolve it in a helpful way. In your personal burnout cycle, identify how do I feel and what are my burnout symptoms that are specific to you. And then for that map to the fourth place, build that personal layered wellness plan. So we'll do like a little they call it like a dopamine menu. We'll do that. And then we'll make room for some discussion and interaction so that hopefully we can kind of collaborate on some ideas and exchange different ways that's possible to layer that. Next slide. So, and we can actually move to the next slide as well. We're going to talk about stress versus stressors. And now these might be things that, again, I assume this group is a group of my peers that have been exposed to lots of different information in lots of different arenas. So what I've done again is kind of put together some of the things that I know to be true and that I've heard over and over again. So we have that it's important to remember that stress is an important motivator and it drives us forward for optimal performance. Victoria, are you able to go to slide 11? It has like a little graph.
This is slide 11.
That is slide 11. Okay, let's go. Okay, we'll just talk about it then, because I wonder if you have a different version. But stress is an important motivator that drives us towards, backwards. Stress is an important motivator to drive us through our optimal performance. Stress overload or burnout is when performance is comprised by the frequency, duration, and the type of stressors. So stressors are individual, but the sensation of stress is going to be universal. So everybody can and will understand that there's physiological changes in your body that equate the sensation of stress. Stressors cause stress, and you must deal effectively with the neurological and physiological shift so that you can be well enough and to successfully navigate the thing that is causing you the harm, which is the stress. Let's go forward one slide. So in the stress cycle, actually, Victoria, can you go back? One more. Let me just make sure.
I think I have a different one.
I believe that's so. Okay, so what number is that one?
This is 17.
Okay, I'm going to try and catch up to you. So we'll stay there. Actually, yeah, go forward one. Yes, there we are. So from this graph, you can kind of see that there's kind of a matrix going on where you can measure your performance according to the stress. And your performance can actually be peaked by the amount of stress because there's physiological responses that come from the body, including like hormone releases, like something like adrenaline or cortisol, something to help you deal with an immediate threat. Typically, that was set up so that if there's an external thing like the stereotypical lion or bear that's chasing you, you do need to produce these hormones and these physiological responses in order to act accordingly. Your performance will increase, where your flow will increase to your legs, your digestion will slow, your eyes, your pupils will dilate so that your vision will become better, your time will become dilated so that you're able to act on a more microscopic level in time. All of these things are to provide you with the ability to have optimal performance to get away from something that is going to cause you perceived harm. When we had, different systems and different types of threat, that was very helpful. In our modern day life, we have the same sort of responses to different types of stressors. And so if we have stressors that are, that are occurring more frequently, that can tax our physical systems and overload us. And that's what we lead to burnout, where your performance is decreased, but your physiological responses remain the same. Next slide. So stress is normal and appropriate. It is can be amazing motivation factor, and it's necessary for human performance in all different ways. So sometimes when there's a stress cycle, so all the time when there's a stress cycle, there's the stressor. So that would be the lion. There's your reaction where you're able to either, they talk about freeze, fawn, fight, or flight. These things are how you're going to be able to deal with that. Then there's a third part of that stress cycle, which would be a resolution. And that's the part that is typically lost. And that's how we can get stuck in the theory of the book. You get stuck when there's chronic stressors, which can lead to chronic stress, where you're dealing with stressors that will not change. So that is the boss at work. That is the baby crying. That is the type of thing that, like financial poverty. These are the types of circumstantial things that on a micro level, there might be different ways you're able to navigate it, but the overall arching situation is going to remain stressful. There's also social appropriateness on how it is possible that you're able to respond. There's times where we are stressed in perhaps a work situation where the logical thing to do would be to hit somebody, but it's not socially appropriate to do so. And there's all kinds of ways that we have to act in these artificial sort of contemporary ways that are not actually normal. You know, if you're in customer service and someone's angry at you about you giving them the right change, your body's telling you to fight them for good reason, but our society says that that's not going to be appropriate. Then also it's important to really understand for ourselves that sometimes the safe strategy is not to act on the stress. Sometimes it is unsafe to start a fight with someone who's physically bigger, stronger, or meaner than you could ever be. So there's lots of reasons why we don't have the resolution to the stress, and unfortunately, it's necessary to not have that resolution. Part of what I'm hoping to share with you today is different ways that we can give ourselves resolution where it won't directly impact the stressor necessarily. Let's try the next slide. Okay. So you're a little bit ahead of me, but this is one of those places. Yep, no, that one's great. So this is one of those places that I've gone to a number of times personally, professionally. This is a series of questions from Washington University. And these are ways to evaluate without whether continuing to navigate a particular stressor is an appropriate choice for you. The title, and you are able to find it on Google, is "Everything is Awful and I'm Not Okay. Questions to Ask Before Giving Up." Because chronic stress and stressors can often lead to people having self-terminating thoughts. That, again, is a kind of normal and unfortunate reality dealing with these large situations that are overarching that don't seem to go away. So this is a series of questions created again by the Washington University to how to check in with, perhaps it's yourself experiencing that, perhaps it's a loved one or a friend, or perhaps it's within a work context. And the first question is, are you hydrated? So going through these questions, it's almost like a checklist. When someone is chronically stressed and completely overwhelmed and they're feeling very bad, these are some things that are strategically able to help resolve some of the physiological symptoms of what being chronically stressed can feel like. Are you hydrated? Take a drink. And then waiting a few moments, how do you feel? Have you eaten in the past 3 hours? Have you showered in the past day? Have you stretched your legs? Have you said something nice to someone in the past day or two? And so these help in several different ways address some of the physical discomfort, some of the emotional discomfort that comes from being chronically stressed to help in a more acute situation. Sometimes there is no effective way to resolve that stressor, but sometimes there's ways to help deal with the discomfort that can come from the sensations. Next slide. Okay, so hmm. So we're looking at polyvagal theory. Thank you. And so this came a little bit from a bit of my yoga training. So what I like to do is, especially in my yoga classes, is try to get people to remember different things: breathe, move, touch. So in your body right now, you can stand up, you can move, but just within your chair, we can do some pelvic rotations and pelvic tilts. And when we do those movements, that is going to help stimulate the psoas muscle, which is a really important muscle because it's one of the only muscles, it's the only muscle that connects the upper body with the lower body, but it also aligns really directly with the aorta. So one of the largest and the most volume filled blood vessels, or what is the word? Not vein, but arteries to take and travel blood through your body. It also is innervated, all in the same small sort of cavity that goes between your hip and your legs. So when they talk about your emotions are stored in your hips, there is kind of a connection between like yogic philosophy and Ayurveda as well as traditional Chinese medicine about why that area is so important. I think physiologically, just when I saw a diagram of it, it kind of made sense. It's an important sort of interactive highway for blood, nerve sensation, as well as muscles. So doing pelvic rotations can try and ease and move some of the sensation that you might be feeling there, as well as some tension that might be stored there. Also, diaphragmic breathing. Your diaphragm is a structure that lives right below your ribs. And as you breathe deep, it works on negative pressure. And as you breathe deep, your diaphragm moves down and your lungs are able to expand in different dimensions to the front and side, and as well as to the back. And doing things like that physically moves different structures in your body, like your intestines, like your liver, and it creates space that can relieve tension that has knockdown effects to help you feel a little bit more relaxed and calm. Next slide. So again, in polyvagal therapy, they talk a lot about the vagus nerve. There's, I think, maybe 12 different nerves clusters that are very important, but the vagus nerve is the longest one. And I did not understand why, but it's one that transitions and it travels. They call it the wandering nerve because it travels all through your body. You can see that it connects with very, very important structures in our body and it controls them. And it's one of the only ones that controls different things. Your heart is going to beat automatically. You cannot control that. You cannot control your lungs. You can't control your digestive. However, there are certain things that are within your control, such as when you take a breath, how you hold your breath, that will have knockdown effects on your digestion and your heart rate and your rhythm and your ability to sweat, things like that. So that's why we talk about deep breathing, closing your eyes, visualization, meditation. The reason why these work is because there is a little way to kind of hack into these involuntary systems using your understanding of how they work and how they influence a sense of well-being. So for this moment, maybe we could try and see what happens, a quick visualization. So I believe everybody's seated. So I want you to find the back of your seat, close your eyes, allow your body to settle down on your sit bones, move any flesh out of the way so that you feel ultimately settled, relaxed. Sit comfortably and draw your attention to your current breath and the rhythm. Notice the air as it enters through your nostrils Notice how it travels in through your head, down through your esophagus, and into your lungs. We talked a little bit about our diaphragm. Pay attention to the movement of your diaphragm and really feel the sensation of the breath drawing in and the diaphragm expanding down. Think of the movement and the impact it has on your organs, in your pelvis. As you breathe in and out, notice the sensation of your back expanding against the chair that you're sitting in. Your tongue resting on your top of your mouth. Release any tension between your eyes. See if you can hear your own heartbeat. Now, from a place like this, there's lots of different types of breathing techniques to go from here. There's called box breathing, where you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4. In, hold, out, hold. Now open your eyes and come back to this room. Notice if there's any changes or sensations that we felt, anything different. Would anybody like to share what that experience was like for them? And my apologies if you can hear, they're literally ripping up the sidewalk outside of my house. Like perfect timing. So when you're doing yoga or meditation, a lot of times they'll talk about your breath. And one of the reasons why breath is so effective is because of that vagus nerve. So you can actually control how it is that your body responds to different threats in your life by how it is that you influence your breathing. And you can influence your body to respond in the way of your choosing. We'll do another exercise a little bit later on to show you how you can get energized and invigorated using your breath, or how you can influence the rest and digest, as they say. Let's try next slide. So here we have, again, a little bit more information about the physiology of being stressed. So there's something called the amygdala, which is they talk about it, it can be as small as an almond-sized structure inside of your brain. It's kind of deep in your brain. It's protected on all sides. And it's your internal threat detector. And much like everything in our body, because we talk about our muscles and how we're able to influence our muscle growth through stimulus. And if we want our muscle to be stronger, we increase the intensity and the weight that we move with it. There are so many structures in our bodies that respond the same way to your life. So with your threat detector, which is your amygdala, the more input that you give it that tells it this is stressful, this is dangerous, the larger it becomes. And then the more easier it is to activate, because the design of your body is to keep you safe, not keep you happy. The good news about that is that you will be the best hunter to be able to survive a lion attack. The not so great news is if you're like me, when your basement floods, every time there's a heavy rain, your amygdala is like, remember that time when you had to deal with insurance for like 9 months? And you can't really rationally turn that off. You're just going to have to go through some exercises to remind it, this is not then, this is not this time. And hopefully the amygdala will eventually get a little bit smaller so that it's more appropriately attuned to the life that you deserve to have, not the one that you do have. So again, this is a great place that we can influence how our amygdala responds through our breath. And you can do that because the amygdala will also, it also does some hormonal releases. So there's some hormones that I put there, dopamine, which is what drives us for motivation. So I think about a lot about future movement. What's going to orient us to do the thing to get us the next thing and predict something's going in the future. There's oxytocin that drives love and connection as well as safety, serotonin, happy, mood, joy of sex, and endorphins, which are very important for pain and stress relief. But when we overtax those systems, sometimes you can get too much of those hormones at the wrong time. Next slide. So what we're trying to influence here is our window of tolerance. So there's some things that we have no control over, and there's some things that we do have some influence and control over. When we're looking at our window of tolerance, it's about increasing the window and increasing our capacity for, sorrow, because it's just as important of and complex an emotion that we want to have close to us, but we don't want our entire experience to be sorrowful and mournful and perhaps depressive when there is so much joy to experience. But also, a lot of joy and euphoria can also turn into anxiety and overwhelm. So, expanding the window of tolerance allows us to kind of move a little bit more fluidly throughout these different ranges of human experience. So there's two different systems at work. There's our sympathetic nervous system and our parasympathetic nervous system. And the more that I'm learning about plants, which is not that much, is the more that I'm trying to think of my life as an organism following kind of a more organic sort of life phase. In that, if you're not, you're either resting and digesting or you're fight and flight. Because if you have a plant that's stressed, it's not going to bloom and blossom. It's going to be put into repair. And you can't really do both very effectively. It's going to be one or the other. So with this window of tolerance, this is one of my favorite things that we did. The first time that I did it, I found it really, really beautiful. So I want to kind of lead us through it all again and see if anybody has any experience that they want to share afterwards. So again, find a comfortable position that you're sitting in right now. We're going to go back into our body. Close our eyes. And actually, before we close our eyes, I'm going to show you what I'm doing. For those who are visual, I'm holding up my right hand, and we're going to be mostly working with our middle finger, our thumb, and our ring finger. So my middle finger is going to be placed on my forehead. And I like to make nice little circles so that I can really get in touch with that sensation. And then I'm going to use my thumb on my right nostril, and I'm going to use my ring finger on my left nostril. So if everyone kind of do that pivot, now it's okay to feel comfortable in your space, relax, remove your glasses, let your head relax, let your neck muscles go. And without depressing your nostrils now, just take a few breaths, just as you normally would, having some pressure on that forehead, but not too much, just very gentle. And now, as we take a breath, our last breath in with both nostrils, put some pressure on the right nostril and exhale just through the left. When it's natural for you, inhale through the left nostril, pin the left nostril closed, exhale through your right nostril. In through the right, pin, out through the left. At your own pace, continue breathing through one nostril at a time. Feel the air come in, feel your sinuses. Notice the sensation. There might be a difference from one nostril to the other. Just notice for yourself which one. Is one more restricted? Is one opening up? Now remove your hand. Just breathe normally. Now come back to the room. Now, did anybody notice a difference between right or left? Can anybody tell me what they experienced?
My left side was harder to breathe through.
Did that change for you?
Yeah, it's still a little bit stuffy, but I think, yeah, interesting. Just the awareness of that, like, is much stronger breath on the right versus the left.
Did anybody notice the same or the opposite, perhaps?
It was difficult for me to figure out which one is the left and which one is the right and do that individually. So I gave up, honestly.
Okay, that's fair. This is one of those things that can take some time. And we did it very, very briefly. I think it was like 20 seconds. So there is a book that I have here, all about breathing and like the science of breathing, which again, I haven't gone all into depth with, but it was such an interesting point for me, because what I did not know is that it's completely normal and your body actually cycles through which nostril to breathe in, and it cycles through about every half an hour for everybody. But what they found that with chronically stressed people, they tend to prioritize breathing through their right nostril. And when the air comes through your right nostril, it feeds into your sympathetic nervous system, which is the one that prepares you for the external world, the external reality. And that's what the sympathetic nervous system is oftentimes called fight and flight. So if you're about to go for a run, if you're about to go for a sales pitch and you want to be really enthusiastic, if there's some other activity that you want to be really energetic for, you can pin your left and breathe really controlled and strong and intentional through your right side, and you will feel physically different than if you do the same thing on your left side. Your left side links to your parasympathetic nervous system. So if you're perhaps looking for sleep, if you're looking for calm and relaxation, perhaps you just got out of a really stressful situation, and maybe you're working with someone who is working through a panic attack. After they're trying to get their breathing more slowly and within their control, you can influence them to try and use their dominant left nostril in their right side and just breathe really deeply through your left. Minute, 2 minutes, that's the type of thing that your body is thinking, oh, we must be ready for bed. We're going to sleep. You might notice some yawning. You can even fake a yawn, which as soon as I say it, I want to do it. But the air that hits the back of your throat, there's so rare circumstances where your body does that. But even just opening your mouth all wide, breathing it deep, letting it hit the back of your throat, that will signal to your body that you're safe. You might experience some chills, you might experience some relaxation, but these are different ways that you're able to physically tell your body, well, this is what I'm needing from you at this point. And not necessarily needing, that sounds even a little bit too forceful.
Started in the morning at 9 a.m.